to stop psychopaths and narcissists from winning positions of power. Yes, people play games all the time, whether it's at work or in the family or at school or even in a monastery. This is by Steve Taylor, Senior Lecturer in Psychology, Leeds Beckett University, on The Conversation. One of the human race's biggest problems has been that people who occupy positions of power are often incapable of using power in a responsible way. In the past, this was mostly due to hereditary systems which assigned powers to kings and lords and others who often did not have the intellectual or moral capacity to use their power well. But in more recent times, it seems as though power attracts ruthless and narcissistic people with a severe lack of empathy and conscience. Of course, they're in power. They're able to lord their power any which way they want. In psychology, there is a concept of a dark triad, quote unquote, of malevolent personality traits: psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. These traits are studied together because they almost always overlap and combine. If a person has psychopathic traits, then they tend to have narcissistic and Machiavellian traits as well. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Now, I'm sorry I only have pictures of males here because women can be very bad narcissists as well, playing terrible games. We see that a lot in high school when one friend takes another friend's boyfriend. I mean, things like that are, if you remember your teenage years in high school, that was an everyday occurrence. But, okay, I just couldn't find enough pictures, I guess. But sorry about that. Ladies, I'm sure you will understand that, yes, there are women narcissists as well. So, people with these personalities cannot sense other people's feelings or see the world from any perspective apart from their own. They don't have any sense of a sense of conscience or guilt to stop them behaving immorally. They feel superior and enjoy manipulating and controlling other people. At the same time, they need to feel respected and admired and like to be the center of attention. There's a great deal of evidence that people with dark triad personalities are attracted to the corporate and political worlds. Research, for example, shows that people with narcissistic and psychopathic traits have a strong desire for dominance and are disproportionately common in leadership positions. As the psychologists Nicholas Steffens and Alexander Haslam put it, like moths to a flame, narcissists may draw naturally to positions of power and influence. Or as the psychologist Robert Hare writes of psychopaths, they, quote, are social predators, and like all predators, they are looking for feeding grounds. Whenever you get power, prestige, and money, you will find them, end quote. The most evil leaders of the 20th century, such as Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein, Colonel Gaddafi, and others, clearly had several dark triad traits. They didn't become leaders because of their ability or intelligence, but simply because they had a tremendous desire for power and were incredibly ruthless and cruel in their pursuit of it. Many present-day politicians appear to have psychopathic and narcissistic traits as well, and it's easy to spot such leaders because they are always authoritarian, following hardline policies. They try to subvert democracy, to reduce the freedom of the press, and clamp down on dissent. They are obsessed with national prestige and often persecute minority groups, and they are always corrupt and lacking in moral principles. Narcissists and psychopaths. In democratic countries such as the UK and the US, one could argue that there is less likelihood of psychopathic people becoming leaders, but there's still a serious problem with highly narcissistic rulers and ruthless and non-empathetic people attaining power. Like many mental health professionals and President's niece, Mary Trump, a clinical psychologist, voiced her opinion about Trump suffers from a range of personality disorders. That's what she says. She claims, she suggested that his main issue was his severe narcissism, but also that he meets the criteria for antisocial personality disorder, which in its severe form is generally considered psychopathy. Well, look, I'm not agreeing with her. I'm just reading the article for you, okay? Now, over time, as sensible and responsible people left his administration, Trump attracted others with similar personality traits to himself. This is what she claims. In this way, his regime became what the Polish psychologist Andrew Lobachevsky called a pathocracy, a government consisting of people with personality disorders. In the UK, there has also been a trend for leading politicians to display signs of narcissism, ruthlessness, and a lack of empathy. It also suggests a movement towards pathocracy. The essence of the problem is that callous, low-empathy people are drawn to power, whereas empathetic and responsible people who would make ideal leaders do not have a desire for dominance. They usually prefer to remain on the ground, interacting with other people, and this leaves positions of power free for the wrong people. So what can be done? Like others who have studied the problem of corporate psychopathy, the Australian psychologist Clive Bodie has suggested that companies should screen leadership candidates for psychopathy. In my view, we should do something similar in politics. Every government, indeed every organization, should employ psychologists to assess potential leaders and determine their suitability for power. Personality tests might not be much use because dark triad personalities are manipulative and dishonest, but other assessments could be used. It's widely accepted there are childhood signs of dark triad traits such as callousness and cruelty and a lack of empathy, guilt, and emotion. So psychologists could examine the candidate's life history, interviewing previous supervisors and co-workers. They could also speak to past acquaintances, former school teachers, or university tutors. Now that's assuming that all these people tell you the truth. If they don't, or if they've got some peeve about this person, forget it. They could be lying as well. Now, some might argue this would give too much power to psychologists who would effectively become kingmakers and perhaps become vulnerable to corruption themselves, and I agree with that. Yes, of course it could be. It's too tempting. Now, while this is true, it's surely preferable to the present situation where there's nothing to stop people with narcissistic and psychopathic traits gaining power and then using their power malevolently. Okay, that's assuming that everybody that pushes, a candidate is not psychopathic and out to gain something for themselves as well. There's a lot of assumptions going on with this type of a system. I don't agree with using psychologists to first screen candidates, because who tells you that these psychologists are not, there's something wrong with them as well. Anyway, this is on The Conversation by Steve Taylor, Senior Lecturer in Psychology, Leeds Beckett University. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.